Hey, BoobTube TV, what's going on? Thanks for being here. Hey, Fred, good afternoon. And yeah, I don't know if I should highlight your first comment or your second comment, BoobTube. I'll do the first one. Yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly what it is. So I wanted to ask you, BoobTube TV, if it's okay if I start with reading your last community post. Wasn't that a community post that you put up? So good. Oh my goodness. If you are okay with it, and if you're not, then I will respect that. Jackie Bushable, what's going on? So maybe I should wait until I get a response from you, or should I just go ahead and start? And then if you say you're not cool with it, then I can just delete it. So let's see. It's so good. Did you guys see this community post? So not the one from, isn't that what it was? Let me see. You've been doing a ton of community posts, girl, boy. I don't even know. Did something happen to it? Where did it go? Wait a second. What happened to it? Is this it? I don't even know. Sorry, was watching A for J. Oh no. A for J. Oh no. Don't subject yourself to that. So didn't you put up an amazing post that I wanted to read? What happened? Did you take it down? Dang it. I can't find it. And let me see. Maybe you had to take it down or something. Terrible. So, no, it should be there. Maybe it got taken down because it was too good. Maybe it got taken down. Can you check? Because wasn't it just like a day old? I should have tried to pull it up before I came on, but that's all right because, I like to just be spontaneous. I'm not seeing it. Wait, is that it? Yeah, this is it. Okay, got it. Okay. Phew. Yeah, it's there. Okay, I was misremembering what the whole thing looked like. So I'll just start out by reading. I'll do my disclaimer and all that stuff afterwards if I remember. Let's make sure that my sound is good. I am gonna see if you know how it is. If I move something, I'm screwed. Is the sound all right? I want to make sure. Let me move closer rather than move the mic. I'll move me because once I start messing with stuff, everything comes unplugged. Okay, so I'm just going to start reading BoobTube TV's post from a day or two ago. So let's get something straight. By her own words, the round mound of sound is the daughter of an agent that served on the same board as a lady that is the listing agent of a guy who owns an extremely expensive property on Lake Tahoe. You're a little too smart for me, BoobTube TV. This is amazing. Thank you for posting this. Thanks for letting me read it. This property has a large esoteric Marina Abramovich-esque crystal in the entry, Lord Rothschild boar-like sconces, a wheel of chaos-esque skylight in the entry, and hosts a harvest moon party yearly. Oddly enough, this area is featured in the background of August 1st, 2022 picture of Kylie Rodney at Hidden Beach. I think that's what I wanted to use for my thumbnail, if I can find it. I just put that one up of the halftime NFL game. I just grabbed it real quick right before I put up my announcement to come live. So I'll maybe switch it out because that was what I wanted to use and I just couldn't find it fast enough. Allegedly, and also so people would know what I'm talking about here, what you're referring to. Allegedly, the same round mound of sound works for the same listing agent of this property. Interesting. The owner and the property has been published all over the place, but even more interesting, allegedly, he's not only a donor, but a board member for a philanthropy organization involved with the Cal Fire wildfire cams. Noble, eh? This individual was supposedly chosen by George W. Bush, 43rd U.S. President, the son of the 11th Director of the CIA, 41st President George H.W. Bush, to be the representative of the United States on the governing board of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency per White House docs. And she did attach all of her sources, or she, he, they, boob tube. I'll call you they if that's all right. They attached all their sources. I think they'd just like to stay anonymous for good reason. Also interesting to note that the White House states this individual was serving on the board of directors at the Sierra Nevada College Board of Trustees at Incline Village, Nevada. And to think we wouldn't be musing any of this info unless a certain local made the rounds spilling the tea on her family. I wouldn't have looked unless she was hell-bent on seeking out my identity and said I was crazy for not believing the narrative the CHP put out. Merry Christmas. Okay, I am going to share something with you guys anonymously. And let's see. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. You can call me whatever you want, sweetheart. No offense taken. Right. I'm always just like, just don't call me late for dinner, right? That's the good old fashioned one. Okay. This is going to be done anonymously. This is an article that's about 4 years old. The police chief was cleared of wrongdoing. Okay. It's called Independent Review Clears Police Chief. Independent review. Police chief was cleared of wrongdoing by an outside investigator after a formal complaint was lodged against him by a resident. The complainant contended that the police chief verbally accosted her during an incident that occurred downtown. In an email to the village manager lodging the formal complaint, it was written that he impeded her ability to enter the grocery store and spoke to her in a tone that she found blatantly condescending and insincere. The smug interference with my ability to run a simple errand downtown was in the poorest of taste, she wrote in the complaint. She added that she attempted to disengage multiple times but was unable to escape. In response to the complaint, it was requested that an outside review investigated, an outside reviewer. The conclusion in the final report was that the complainant was unfounded and that the police chief simply had said hello and did not violate any policies. It was added that although there was no probable cause for a criminal complaint, that the investigator found probable cause that the civilian engaged in disorderly conduct and reckless operation during the incident. A conclusion he based upon an officer's statement claiming that the civilian nearly hit the police chief with her car while yelling obscenities. But they're not going to be pursuing any discipline against him, and no charges will be filed against her. How weird. Isn't that weird? Huh. However, the police chief was granted a temporary restraining order against the civilian. This civilian is also married to a employee of the city and previously lodged a formal complaint against the same police chief about 7 years earlier, when that police chief was simply an officer. In that case, the complaint was reviewed by the prosecutor's office and dismissed by then police chief. And the government official employee that was married to the civilian became the subject of 3 highly visible public disciplinary investigations into his professional actions in recent years. During those cases, numerous citizens have spoken up in support of this government employee. The news has chosen to release the name of the complainant because she is related to the government employee and has made her grievances with the department public. And let's see, what else do I want to read out of this? According to the investigation summary, the incident happened when the police chief was hanging signs about face masks, that would be during COVID, on lampposts downtown. And the civilian parked nearby with the intention of going into the grocery store. According to the civilian's email complaint, while walking from her car to the grocery store with a toddler on her hip, she greeted the other officer, and the police chief instantly began taunting her, she wrote. From the outset, he was blatantly condescending in his tone, so I requested for him not to address me altogether, the civilian wrote. Although she told the police chief multiple times to stop speaking to her, he continued, she reported. Repeating myself, I requested that he not address me in any way, shape, or form, to no avail. According to the investigation report, the police chief said hello and addressed the civilian by name, and she took personal offense to this greeting. The police chief simply said, hello. This type of interaction would be expected in public servants, especially in a city such as this, the investigator wrote. According to a witness statement from the village employee who was downtown, the police chief responded to alleged comments from the civilian that included, you're the worst kind of creep and you're an effing freak, by saying, I'm sorry you feel that way, and I hope you have a nice day. Have a nice day, ma'am. When the police chief and the officer then continued down the street hanging their flyers, the civilian retrieved her cell phone and began taking pictures from a close proximity, according to the report. In her complaint, the civilian wrote that she took the photos for evidence. 7 minutes later, another police officer had pulled up next to the police chief and was speaking to him when the civilian drove by and nearly struck the police chief with her vehicle while yelling expletives at him, according to his own account. According to the civilian, the police chief was blocking the road. During the incidents, the police chief instructed both officers to not take law enforcement action against the civilian, but to officially document the incidents. In the end, the investigation concluded that although the civilian reported that she was accosted and her ability to enter the store was impeded, the evidence does not support her claim. Oh my God, look at my hair, it's awful. Turning this way. I'm going to have to delete this for bad hair. In fact, the civilian made a decision to stop and engage the police chief According to the eyewitnesses, she was the aggressor. The investigator additionally found that the police chief's actions were in line with the department's mission statement and core values, as he acted in a demonstrably inclusive manner toward her, regardless of the fact that she has personal and professional disdain towards him. The police chief was mindful of his primary obligation to serve the community courteously. In reaching his conclusion that the police chief violated no policies, the investigator reviewed 3 witness statements written by villagers who were downtown when the incident occurred. He also reviewed the 2 incidents reports filed by the officers that the police chief is the supervisor of. And let's see. No security camera footage from downtown businesses captured the incident. Oh, isn't that weird? Since all police cars have uh, those cameras, and there were police cars there. Weird. You know, when this woman almost ran this police chief over, that would have been on the dash cam. Okay, I'm gonna keep reading. No security camera footage from downtown businesses captured the incident. Not even the bank or all the others. That's so weird. And cruiser dash cam footage was not available as the cruiser was parked too far away. It's so funny, according to the report. So, the complaint was received a few days after the incident, and based upon advice from the attorney, the solicitor, there was a third-party investigator sought out to review it. And let's see. Asked why a law enforcement agency was chosen for the outside review, the city manager said that the agency had the investigative skill set and expertise. That's weird because, yeah, they could have hired just like any law firm needed to review such a case. The investigation was completed free of charge. Oh, isn't that nice? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. As a professional courtesy, as police departments routinely seek each other's assistance to review internal complaints. Oh, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Okay, got it. Got it. In response to a news question about why a citizen review committee, such as the pilot process used to investigate officer misconduct, was not used to investigate the citizen complaint, the city manager said that he chose a more formal and outside review due to the complexity of the complaint. The nature of the complaint was not a specific violation of a specific policy, he said. In addition, he decided upon an outside review due to the fact that the police chief had previously documented problematic encounters with that citizen. For instance, in an email, he wrote that he needed to take protective steps to protect his family in the wake of 2 incidences in which the citizen came to his wife's workplace and began ranting about his family. Nearly a week after the downtown incident and a few days after the complaint, the police chief petitioned a judge for a civil protection order against said citizen, which was granted on a temporary basis. The order, which also covers the entire family, stated that the citizen is permitted to call the local PD for help or to report a crime. Oh, that's so nice, huh? In the citizen's complaint from several years earlier, she had argued that police chief, who was then an officer, should have arrested and charged a man that she claimed chased her on the bike path with the intention of harming her. Although the then acting city manager found the complaint against the then officer actions had some merit, an outside review by the same agency that was used this time, that was used several years earlier, um, found that the officer who responded to that call did not have probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed. Is that interesting or is that interesting? Oh, boob tube. What a weird question. Why didn't he turn on his body cam? Because he didn't have one. Ah, isn't that convenient? Um, why all the messages redacted? Sorry. If she should have done that, why didn't they charge her? Exactly, boob tube. In case you didn't figure it out, I am that citizen. So if you have any further questions, I can answer those questions. Very convenient, right? But they did have, there was a bank that had a camera, and there was a police car that had a camera. So they chose not to use those either. There was also a real estate agency that had a camera and a retail store that had a camera. Those are just the ones that I know of. So there were 4 surveillance cameras that none of them were used because his story didn't add up. But he could tell the people that he was the supervisor of to say that his story added up, right? And then as for the other alleged 3 witnesses, the witnesses that I talked to said that police chief needed to know how to stay in his own lane, to quote one of them. Bless your heart. Boob tube, doesn't that mean F off? This is something I've wanted to share with you guys for a long time, and I have yet to do that. So, yeah, this is part of why I have the perspective that I have when I'm covering cases, because I know that law enforcement can be crooked AF. So, let's get into the notes and cover some of these cases. Man, my hair is just freak show at the moment, huh? I do have a hat. I think I need it. Shall I? And then I'm going to drop my notebook. It's a good hat. It's from Game of Thrones, and now my watch has ended. Isn't that what it says? Something like that. Okay. Let me clear my throat. No. Boob tube. Oh, yeah. I'm not kidding you. That police chief gave me a case of the hives for years. He was actually stalking me for years. And when I pulled my phone out to take pictures of him harassing me that day, I had been taking pictures of him every time I saw him, stalking me. And I did my best to avoid him like the plague. And then that was what he based his little protection order thing on, was that I was stalking him. So, he never pursued anything with the protection order. It didn't just get dropped. It just kind of like hung out in space. Nothing happened with it. And it wasn't that long later that the man quit his job. So he was really bad at it. Oh man, as you can tell from the little story that I just read. Spin that lid backwards. Oh, you're so funny. But then you'll see my, so you can see my face. Okay, I'll do it like that. Anyway, then I need to obsess on things being even Steven and all that. No, I can't do it. I'm gonna have to change hats. Perfect. Okay, thank you. I know. It's like I like to wear the bill forward, but then when I'm bending down, especially, you can't see me at all. And sorry for hitting the mic. So I finished that most horrifying, was that an HBO special? What was that one called? I just finished it yesterday. The one with Amy Adams. Sharp Objects. Don't watch it, you guys. I missed what town this was, Fred. That was on purpose. The town name was left out. is somewhere in Ohio. And you know what quadrant now, right? Um, so Sharp Objects, this 8-part miniseries from HBO Max that is available for streaming other places too. I told you guys I had started it a few days ago and it was really good and really creepy and I highly recommended it. And I still highly recommend it, but only if you're super brave because it is like one of the most horrifying movies, TV shows, miniseries, books. It is one of the most horrifying. It's called Sharp Objects. I knew it was going to take some twists and turns. Of course, I could not foresee what exactly the twists and turns were. I did foresee some of them, and I'm not going to say anything more because I don't want to do a spoiler alert for anybody who has yet to see it. Highly, highly recommend it. Sharp Objects, starring and produced by Amy Adams. Troublemaker, LOL. You know, I was seriously just trying to take the kids to the grocery store to get some lunch. It was lunchtime. It was the middle of the day. It was the middle of town. And I had a small child on my hip and was holding the hand of another small child. And they both like burst out into tears after all this. It was terrifying. I was terrified, you know? I mean, a person in that position has a lot of power. And I was afraid that I might get arrested for something. So I was really careful not to break any laws. I was really careful. You know, I knew taking a photograph of him close up would upset him, but I needed the evidence and it's also 100% legal. And when he says I almost ran him over with my murderous minivan, it was more like I came to a complete stop because he was in my way. And then I very, very slowly, carefully drove around him. And then when I was yelling expletives at him in his words, I actually rolled my window down and said, "What are you going to do? Jump in front of my effing car?" Because I think he was planning on it. So then he could say that I hit him. Oh, that was a good laugh. Anyway, enough is enough. Too real, huh? Like, so yeah, I've been harassed by somebody in a position of high power and authority. So he never got disciplined. He was the laughing stock of everybody who knew what had happened, and pretty much everybody knew what had happened. And like I said, he quit a year later. You know, he kind of ran with his tail between his legs. You know, he ran far, far away, ran to the hills, and never to be seen or heard from again. So I think that's all I should say about that for now. You're kinder than I am, BoobTube says. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I am going to move on to talk about the cases because my whole point in sharing that story today with the cases that I want to cover is just talking about how slippery people can be. So slippery people that have a lot of money, that have a lot of power, that have both. People like in Kylie Rodney's case, people like in the Pity Dizzy case. I don't even know what to call that anymore. I mean, I hear other content creators just calling them by name, but I don't even like to say their names because it's sort of like Beetlejuice, you know, speak of the devil, devil shall appear. So these slippery people are insane and they get away with red rum, just like in that series that I just told you about, Sharp Objects, like John Ramsey. Sub Rosa, hello. You know, I have followed that case kind of half-heartedly off and on since it occurred a million years ago. It always seemed to me, I'll just say it, you know how I am, but let me do my disclaimer real quick. Everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation, open up a discussion, and learn something. And all my videos are made for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. I aim to be educational. So with JonBenet Ramsey, I've always thought that she was kind of pimped out by her parents to the elite in Boulder, Colorado, and that was why nobody's ever been busted. What was it, 30 years ago now? And I think that the spotlight on her parents was probably warranted. I don't like to say that because how horrible to have that spotlight turned on you if you're completely innocent. I don't think they were completely innocent at all. That whole story is fishy AF. And her poor brother, Burke, like, what kind of normal life is he ever supposed to have? He can't. He absolutely can't. But also, I'd been talking about the Martha Moxley case in my last couple of videos, and that's another one. You're not only dealing with Kennedys, you're dealing with Skakels who are like, I don't know, 100 times wealthier than the Kennedys. So I've done some studying up to fact check myself, and I've learned a lot more about the case. I've remembered a lot more about the case, but I've also learned things that I never knew before. So that quote unquote tutor, Ken Littleton, that had just moved into the Skakel house that same day, October 30th, 1975. He might still be alive, but he's been scapegoated and had his life destroyed since the day that happened. When he got hired for that job and moved into that mansion, he probably thought he struck gold, and it was quite the opposite. And I think a lot of times kids who grow up in these super wealthy families do feel like they can't trust anybody. And a lot of their problems are the exact same, if not worse, than the problems of what you'd see in children that have had interventions by Child Protective Services. So, evil protects evil, sad but true. Absolutely. So now John Ramsey is a true crime celebrity with guest appearances on Crime Junkie and a regular spot on at CrimeCon. It's unreal. Yeah, I don't trust this whole CrimeCon thing, the convention. That's just so bizarre. It's like a comic book convention to me. And yeah, it just kind of takes it to a whole new level of cray. One of the most surprising things to me about John Ramsey is that he dated Natalie Holloway's mother for a long time, Beth Holloway. At first, it kind of made sense, but I don't know. And then one of the other things that always bothered me about his case is just the whole thing with the $118,000 ransom note, and that was the exact number of his Christmas bonus, $118,000. I don't trust CrimeCon either. Well, and remember, Ethan from the Idaho 4, why is his name escaping me at the moment? Ethan Chapin's mother went to CrimeCon. And, my guess is that she was maybe going to try to market a book or something. I mean, that is one thing if your family is victimized in this way as a consolation prize, maybe therapy too. I can't talk anymore. Let's see. Consolation prize in therapy. You can tell your story. You can get a book deal. Like Amanda Knox. Urgh. Okay. Let me stay focused on one case at a time if I can. So I wanted to talk about similarities between Martha Moxley and Kylie Rodney, who writes a several-page note in the house with pen and paper from the house. So ridiculous. They think that we are all poor and stupid. Well, and honestly, I think every single one of these whack cases, there's rugs involved. And so, when you're rich and you're on rugs, and yeah, you think everyone else is poor and stupid, and you're friends with the investigators, so you know how things are going to go. I don't know. It's just so sad. I mean, that little girl was just becoming a young person. She was 6 years old. She was probably not so easy to control anymore, was one of the problems. And then the whole thing with that, what do you call that? The name of those wire handle things that was made with like a broom handle. Is it called like a gullet? Ugh, I don't even like to say the word, but those aren't used so much to end people's lives as they are used to control people, kind of like a choke collar. What are those things called? A garret. Thank you. Did I call it a gullet? I was so close. A mullet. And the fact that they were so comfortable to be in that home writing that letter right on the Ramsey's paper. Yeah, there's so many weird things about that case. I mean, getting on their jet to fly to Aspen the day after Christmas, and what they had like 2,000 people in there a couple days earlier for a Christmas party. Thanks, Sub Rosa, for the garret. Yeah, a mullet. Well, mullets are just as bad, aren't they? Okay. What is it? Business in the front, party in the back. All right. So let's talk about the similarities between Martha Moxley and Kylie Rodney, because I think that there's a lot. Kylie Rodney lived in Truckee, Lake Tahoe area that is extremely wealthy. And, her next door neighbors were the Hamburglers. And Scammy, the one who wanted to like control the narrative and control everything, man, reminds me so much of Amanda Knox. Reminds me so much of this little mini series that I just saw, Sharp Objects. People have a lot of trouble wrapping their mind around these beautiful young women being so evil, as if that could never happen. I mean, come on. Cops search house, don't find her, but dad does and tain't seen. Right. I've got a coworker with a mullet. He thinks he looks great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so the thing with Martha Moxley, because she was on her parents' property, just like 200 yards from the front door, but under a tree. I didn't realize that the person who found her was another young girl that happened upon her a few hours into the day of October 31st, 1975. I did not know that. I thought it was one of like the law enforcement that eventually found her. I mean, because I don't even think she was covered, was she? I mean, they threw a sheet over her. She was kind of under the tree, but not so far under the tree. But I mean, it was a big property. I'm going to shut up so I don't derail you, Justice, for Kylie. Oh, you're so funny, BoobTube. I know. I have fun trying to balance what I'm trying to say and keeping up with you guys so I don't let you run ahead too far. But it's always a good time. So thanks for being here. Oh, I didn't do my thing here. I'll try to get back on track. Please hit your like button and make sure you're still subscribed. If you are subscribed, share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like it, and turn on your notification bell to ring if you want to be notified. So Martha Moxley and Kylie, I think, were both sort of outsiders, is the first thing that I want to say. They were both very close to the same age. So Kylie was 16, Martha Moxley was 15. So, beautiful young blonde women just kind of coming into their own and living in these extremely wealthy areas. The Moxleys were extremely wealthy, but they weren't old money like the Skakels and like the Kennedys and like so many other people in, what's it called? Is it called New Haven, that little enclave of Greenwich, Connecticut? It's like the richest part of the country and the richest part of the enclave. And the Skakels were like, so the father, he wasn't an attorney. I was mistaken. He was a magnate, right? Is that how you say it? His father was the one who started the coal company. I think that he was inheriting the bazillions of dollars, and then his 7 kids were also inheriting the bazillions of dollars. So he was the brother of Edith Skakel Kennedy, who only just died this last October, I think. She was like 96 or something. And Edith Skakel Kennedy had married RFK. RFK Jr. back in October of 2020, on the 45-year anniversary of Martha Moxley's grisly homicide, he helped get the case basically deleted so that it'll never get looked into again. So he had written a book, RFK Jr., and he was the same age as these kids. So Martha and her brother were 15 and 17. The youngest of the Skakel children were Michael, who was 15, Tommy, who was 17. And then I want to say that RFK Jr., no, he was a little bit older than them. He was in college. And so they were in high school. But you know who was the exact same age as Martha and Michael? Is William Kennedy Smith, the exact same age. He was 15. And for years, there were rumors that he was there that night. I don't think that that's substantiated, but so much about Martha Moxley's case has been scrubbed off the internet and continues to be scrubbed off the internet. I was able to dig up a special on the Investigative Discovery Channel about Ken Littleton's interview, the tutor that they tried to pin it on, who I think is still alive. He's in his early 70s. But Ken Littleton never was interviewed, never really told his full story. You know, he tried to cooperate with the police, but they kept trying to pin the case on him. It's amazing that he was still alive, that they didn't just off him and then go, oh, yeah, he did it, and he couldn't take it anymore. So he took his own life, right? That's what they always do. So Ken Littleton, here, where am I? I'm just like spinning out of control, talking in circles. Sorry. That interview from 7 years ago was very hard to find. It's on the Investigative Discovery Channel. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I think I wrote it down. Yeah, it's right here in front of me. Imagine that. It's a mini series from Investigative Discovery called Guilty Rich, and I think they only did like 6 episodes, and I think it was the last episode. So I'd never heard of that. Guilty Rich. I'll put a link to that in the description, but you can only find it if you go to Investigative Discovery. Like, you can't really look it up so well. You can't really Google it. Like I said, all these things have been scrubbed, and that's what people like Puffy do. That's what people like Kennedys do. That's what people like police chiefs do, is they have easy access to get things scrubbed. So there were a lot of things in that story that I read to you at the beginning that were insane, that were easily manipulated by people being in positions of power. The slippery people, the alternate theorizers, right? So one of the things that's left out of all the Martha Moxley case, like everything you see about Martha Moxley, nobody ever mentions when Michael Skakel was initially arrested, like somewhere around 2002 for the first time. So like, you know, almost 27 years after the incident, his wife left him immediately. Nobody mentions that because that tells you something. There's information in that. They had a small child too. They had like a new baby, maybe 1 year old, 2 year old. But why would you divorce your Skakel husband, you know, your Kennedy, your meal ticket basically, when you're a new mother, especially? But she knew he was guilty, I think. And when things are scrubbed, you have to ask yourself why. Why would it be scrubbed? Like if his wife just left him because they were having marital trouble and she couldn't take the heat, you know, most women would stand by their man in a situation like that if they thought that their husband was being accused of something that he could never have done, right? So you want to know who is an attorney is RFK Jr., of course. So he's a Democrat. We know Kennedys are all Democrats, but he was on the independent ticket, and now he's backing the Republican incoming president. So Russ Skakel and the whole Skakel family is like multi-generational Republicans. So it's interesting to me that RFK Jr. is such a staunch defender of the Republican part of his family, that this is his uncle. Russ Skakel is his mother's brother. And he's got the deepest pockets in the country, some of the deepest pockets in the world. So did I mention it was the coal industry? Like they discovered coal or something. I don't know. They owned all the coal under the earth's surface somehow. But that's where the Skakel fortune came from. You know, sort of like DuPont. DuPont invented everything. Skakel's just owned everything and discovered everything, allegedly. Um, oh, the lack of expression on these people, on their faces, in their souls, the lack of expression in Michael Skakel, the years of him being in front of a camera, the lack of expression on RFK Jr.'s face. But you know what those two really have in common, Michael Skakel and RFK Jr., in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly, is they both have them Charles Manson eyes. Big time. Like baby blues, I'll give them that. They got the really pretty colored Charles Manson eyes. But man, are they piercing. Like, don't look in their eyes. They're like the spinny snake eyes that'll like hypnotize you and do strange things. So I did find out something interesting, you guys, in my research of the Martha Moxley case, is that there's no statute of limitation on red rum. We all know that, correct? I mean, that's an easy one. But there is statute of limitations on being an accessory. I had no idea. At least in Connecticut, there is. So whoever might have helped Michael Skakel or whoever did it to Martha Moxley, it's too late for them to be prosecuted. It's 45 years. It was 45 years ago in October of 2020 when any chance of ever getting justice for Michael Skakel was annihilated. And that was 4 years ago. So we're coming up on 50 years this October 30th. And I hope that there's some justice for Martha Moxley and for her family. Her brother's still alive. I mean, he must feel responsible. He was 2 years older. You know, it's an interesting case, but it also, I think, has a lot of parallels to Kylie Rodney's case. And Kylie Rodney's case hasn't been touched since it happened, in my opinion. That was 2.5 years ago, and nothing's been done, in my opinion. And Martha Moxley's case, I want to say it was years and years before anything was done. And then I do want to give Mark Fuhrman credit where credit's due, because he was able to get the wheels of justice rolling finally, as dubious as a character as he is. And then why in the world, this is where you could just jump down that rabbit hole and keep running. Why in the world did Mark Fuhrman find a glove at the Idaho 4 crime scene? And then why did he disappear? Thank goodness he disappeared. I was hoping and praying for that. I thought, oh no, don't have Mark Fuhrman finding gloves here. We are screwed. Anyway, it's just too weird. So yeah, Mark Fuhrman had moved to Sandpoint, Idaho, after his life became a train wreck in Los Angeles because of the whole thing with the Simpson trial. And I think where he really screwed up in that Simpson trial was saying that he had never used the N-word in his life. And then they had a tape recording of him using the N-word. And then he said, oh, well, that was just for a play, right? You remember all that? And whether it was or wasn't for a play is kind of immaterial. Like he he should not have said that he's never used that word, because I would imagine that that word has come out of most of our mouths in one sense or another, not necessarily using it or being derogatory with it, but just saying the word because you're like telling a story or something and that word is in it. Or even a song, put some N word in my cup, that song that's been so popular the last few years. Okay, more coffee. Not familiar with the Martha Moxley case. Oh my gosh, it's going to be a 50-year-old case this coming October, and it's still unsolved. It's a cold case, which is Kylie's case too. It's not even considered a cold case because it's not even considered a case. It's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. And I'm just so appreciative of that post that you put up, BoobTube, because it's very astute, and I thought it was important that it be on a video as well as a community post, because I don't think that many people look at community posts as look at videos, even though my videos don't get that many views. I'm okay with that because it's quality, not quantity. And I am getting really close to 750,000 views total since I started. And that's exciting. I've been looking forward to that mile marker for a long time. I don't want to jinx it, but I might hit that mile marker before the new year rolls around. We'll see. I'll have to do a couple of good videos between now and then. That might be a tall order. Let's see. Things should be scrubbed. Things that should be scrubbed, like the Delphi crime scene photos, aren't scrubbed. Makes you wonder. Right. Right. Are those are circulating on the internet, aren't they? I mean, I have my own private copies that I will share with individuals and ask each individual not to put it on the internet. But the only reason I'm willing to share it is because I'm pretty sure it's already on the internet, or was on the internet. Manson lamps, the eyes. There's a lot more data I will be exposing, maybe a bit. Thank you for reading it. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, isn't that weird that there's no statute of limitations on being an accessory? I had no idea. I thought red rum was red rum, and that if you were an accessory or an accomplice before, during, or after the fact, that there was no statute of limitations on that. But the thing with Kylie Rodney is that there are probably many people involved. There's probably many accomplices and accessories before, during, and after the fact. There are statutes of limitations on them, but no statute of limitations on somebody who might have ended her life. So those people might tell the story. See, they don't want to tell the story and implicate anybody when they're implicated too. But maybe someday they will tell the story. And yeah, I mean, it's so complicated. And if you have all that money and power, you can buy the system. You can buy the results that you want and need. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, some details about Martha Moxley that I don't think I ever knew this. So I knew that it was a 9-iron or 6-iron, a golf club that was probably retrieved out of the Skakel garage, that had either the name Skakel or an S on it. And it went with the golf clubs that were in the garage. So, even if it wasn't in the garage when they got it to use it. So that was used as a weapon to bludgeon her. And then after she was bludgeoned, it was broken. So a lot of people thought that the golf club had broke during the bludgeoning, but apparently it didn't. Apparently, after the bludgeoning, it was intentionally broke, because you have to like bend it that way. Like just hitting something really hard, even hitting cement, isn't going to break it. And then it was broken, and Henry Lee, the brilliant Henry Lee, I think is the one who determined this. It was broken in order to become a sharp object. and then trigger warning, prepare yourself. It was used to impale her neck. So horrifying, absolutely, like beyond overkill, absolute fury and rage. And I couldn't help so many times over the last few days with studying up on Martha Moxley's case again, it just conjuring up all these images from the whole thing in South Carolina with those douchebags, the Murdochs, just these extremely rich, entitled, violent freaks that just rub people out whenever they feel like it, or when they're just so drunk that they're not paying attention. And then they try to pin it on somebody else, and they don't care how many lives are ruined. You're not buying the official narrative surrounding Kylie Rodney. Do you have a theory about what you think actually happened? Sub Rosa, I do. But of course, I mean, do you buy the theory surrounding what happened to Kylie Rodney? I think it's impossible. I think that the theory is impossible. I think that the whole thing with the fire cams, like, the minute she went missing, I was like, oh, they've got fire cams. They're going to know exactly what happened. And no, they waited months before they were then like, oh, look, we've got fire cam footage of the car like driving into the water. The whole thing was ridiculous. So I'm not sure, because I wasn't there and I don't have videotape surveillance. But there's a lot of clues given that I believe. For instance, the slippage of, sorry to use that word because there was that too, but the slipping up of using the Lord of the Flies party thing. The Lord of the Flies is extremely brutal and violent and just animalistic. So I think that gives a lot of insight. I personally believe that she was violated, like the kind of thing that would happen at a P. Diddy party is the kind of thing that I think happened to Kylie. And I hope that I'm incorrect, but I'm pretty solid on that. I hoped and I prayed, and for 2.5 years, I tried to find any evidence to support that didn't happen. But the fact that it's never even brought up as a possibility in the official narrative. So what I think is possible is that, they invited her to the party to set her up. And then there was this fight. It wasn't a friendly fight. It was a fight. It was a Fight Club fight. And that might have been with Scammy. And Scammy was rageful with her because she'd been stealing all the boys, the Hamburglar and the Jägermeister. They both loved the rock star. And, why should Kylie get all the attention when Scammy's the little rich kid, right? Her parents are in control of all of the money of the entire community, like $34 billion contracts from the government over the decade of 2020 to 2030. So you got this, this little rock star, this little Cinderella rock star stealing all the attention. So do her in and humiliate her. And I think that Scammy was very calculating in getting as many people involved as possible so that nobody would turn her in, because they were all part of it. They all essentially had the red stuff on their hands too, metaphorically, maybe literally. I think she could have been assaulted in the back of her own car. I don't know. I think she was probably assaulted in the forest, which is why they had all the stories about her peeing all over the place, was like in case you found her DNA, in case you found any bodily fluids of hers or anybody else's, or Sammy's, Scammy's. The falling in the hole. I mean, all of this narrative is to cover and have an alternative narrative for what actually happened. That's what criminals do, is they try to conjure up a story to explain away all the evidence. And then when they're confronted with inconsistencies, they, I don't know, freeze, right? The frozen shock phase, or, they just forget what they're saying mid-sentence, or, you know, they zone out, they fall asleep, they're all tired. I have her completely, huh? What was I saying? I have her completely. No, that's not where she was located. So those are both scammy quotes in that Tony Dodge interview where she's in the car and she's trying to mansplain away everything. I have her completely, and that's not where she was located. And both of those times she completely stops herself and is like, oh crap, what did I just say? She said so many stupid things. I think you're on the right track there, Jazz. Good afternoon, C3PO. Everything that happened around the Rodney case was wild. The crazy cowboy rapper saying it was a psyops. Crazy cowboy rapper? You talking about Ryan? That's hilarious that you call him the crazy cowboy rapper. That cracks me up. And yeah, they're suing him when, all he did was try to help. I mean, even when he said that crazy thing about how she wasn't real, he was trying to get under people's skin so that they would come out swinging, and it worked. So, I think he was strategic in saying that. Sam's interviews, the dive team busted for grape right after that high strangeness. Yeah, I knew that they were going to have to obliterate the credibility of AWP. I just didn't know how, and I didn't know how easy it was going to be, because I was like, yeah, good luck with that. I was being driven. Thank you, Boob Tube. That was perfect. I was in the passenger seat. That was a good one. I knew I was forgetting a big one. Alternative story, just like in the Maddie Soto case. Oh. And see, in these cases, Maddie Soto and Kylie Rodney, there could be some type of pimping out going on. The families needing money and having this child that they're exploiting. Anna Bees, hello. So what is this? Okay. So yeah, the thing with the Michael Skakel is that he still could have been retried. He had been convicted, and then it was overturned, and then it was reinstated, and then it was overturned again between like the year 2002 and 2019. And then in 2020 was when it was eliminated as a possibility of ever being retried, which was very, very sad for Martha Moxley's mother, who was still alive at the time. I think she's still alive now. And her brother, who's lived with this his whole life, when he was 17, and he probably feels like he should have been protecting her that night. What else do I have here? So Tommy and Michael, the 17 and the 15-year-old, they both were getting failing grades in the few months right after their next door neighbor was taken out. And they were the last two to see her alive. And the tutor that was hired, he wasn't really hired to tutor them. I mean, sure, maybe, but he was more hired to control them because they were physically out of control. They were very violent. They were acting out a lot. Their mother had passed away from, a battle with cancer. And Tommy and Michael needed to be like physically restrained sometimes. So I would imagine that the father, Russ Skakel, had gone through many quote unquote tutors, or whatever you want to call them, babysitters. But remember, those two are the youngest. So they had 5 older siblings. One was a sister, and then 4 other older brothers. And none of the family could control Tommy and Michael. And that's what Ken Littleton was really hired to do. Like, they called him a tutor just to cover, basically. But some of the worst evidence or best evidence against Michael Skakel is his own admission to what he had done to Martha when he was in a rehab facility as a teenager the following years. And, honestly, he was probably blackout drunk and probably can't really remember what exactly happened. But I'll just leave it at that. The blacking out is what people do with post-traumatic stress disorder too, not just substance abuse, but tying that in to the Diddy and Jay-Z case right now with this Jane Doe, the 13-year-old, and her inconsistencies in her story. It's like she was rugged. She was knocked out with substances, and she was traumatized. So of course there's going to be holes in the story. Of course there's going to be inconsistencies and things that might not be accurate. Sub Rosa says we made really good time. And I'm not sure if you're talking about AWP. Confusing some facts, which might be rumors in the chat, is not recommended. Thank you, C3PO. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Let's see. Sub Rosa, I cannot stand what that horrible man says. That's also how you get RBF and frozen shock phase. What's RBF? How come I don't know what RBF is? You're always running circles around my brain, C3PO. What's RBF? Please do tell. So yeah, what was it I was just saying about the blackouts and so crazy. And so that guy, Ken Littleton, was 23 years old when he was hired by Russ Skakel, and then subsequently had his life completely shattered. He's, I want to say, about 72 now, somewhere around there. And he's been living in a nursing home since his interview. This interview that he finally did was in 2017. So 7 years ago, and he was 65. He'd been a raging alcoholic most of his adult life. And again, like I said, probably just lucky to be alive. So why did they have that halftime crap with Bay? Why did they have it looking like a white party, you guys? Oh, thank you. I'm so uncool. Resting biatch face. I knew that. I just haven't thought about it for a long time. Resting bee face. Thank you, Sub Rosa. I think is referring to we made good time coming from Scammy's mouth. Oh, okay. Funny. I was about to answer that. RFB. Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay. So that whole white party thing, I thought that was in such poor taste. So I did look up that Beyonce got paid $20 million for that halftime performance at the NFL game on Christmas Day. $20 million. I hadn't had a chance to look up what the highest pay has ever been or what the average pay is, but I gather that that's a lot higher than most. And I also hadn't had a chance to look up to do some research to find out if maybe her husband was supposed to perform too, and then he didn't. So maybe that's why the pay was so high, was because that was what they were promised, but then they canceled him because of the controversy. And where was he? Was he even there? I would imagine that he would have stayed away, far, far away, like he should have with the his daughter's opening. I always say it wrong. It's not Mufasa, is it? I say Mustafa, but yeah, it's Mufasa, I think. I was sleeping when the game was on. The Super Bowl, I don't know, Anna Bees. I don't know if she's scheduled to do that. I would imagine that they might not want to book her for things right now because things are looking so bad. So I'm convinced that she could easily have been the one in the room with the 13-year-old, and that they purposely put J-Lo's name in that paperwork a week before the Christmas football game to get everybody to like look over there, or not, don't look over there, look over there, so that they could keep Beyonce in the Super Bowl, so that she could get her $20 million. Because when you're getting paid $20 million, you're not the only one getting paid $20 million. You know, you're responsible for a lot of people that are getting their cut. So you can't screw that up. You screw that up, you're in big trouble. You know what I mean, Jelly Bean? Does anyone else think the performance was some kind of cult ritual? Well, Sub Rosa, even just looking at that thumbnail picture, yeah. I mean, I didn't watch it. I kind of like reviewed it without sound because I was sleeping because I had to work Christmas night. Game was way past my bedtime for 1:45 a.m. work alarm. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So let's see. Have we already been on for over an hour? And I only have half my notes, I think, that I've gone over. Where's the other half? Let's see. So, yeah, I was going to kind of joke about how the Skakels were like the worst neighbors you can imagine. And I always say, like, good neighbors can make or break your entire life, but nothing like the Skakels. And yeah, her family, Martha Moxley's family, had only moved into that neighborhood about 18 months prior, and they were from the West Coast. I want to say they were from the Berkeley area. Her father was a very successful accountant, so he got some highfalutin job. They, like I said, they were loaded. They just weren't old money like the Skakel kind of loaded. Nobody was loaded like the Skakels were loaded, not even the Kennedys, which is why RFK has been so loyal to them still to this day, in my opinion. So he wrote a book about Michael Skakel being framed that I think was instrumental in getting the judge to put the ixnay on the Michael Skakel case ever being reopened. It's so sad. It's so sad. So hopefully something can happen with the 50-year anniversary. One thing that could happen is that Martha's family could sue the judge who made that ruling. You can sue judges. It doesn't happen very often, and they don't get justice very often, but you can sue anybody. Let's see. It's all just so toxic. That's one of the things I've wanted to talk about in my lives with you guys, is just how toxic all this Diddy, Jay-Z, Beyonce stuff is. J-Lo, it's all absolutely rancid and toxic, and it's so good to take a break from it, especially around the holidays, and just, you know, focus on staying healthy and happy and what's important. And what's important gets lost in their whole gaslighting shell shuffle game. You know, not only do you have this 13-year-old victim, but you've got all the other victims that aren't coming forward and never will, because this is what they don't want to go through, right? Let's see. We made good time comment was from Steven Stearns. Oh, okay. Thanks, Anna Bees. I haven't paid as much attention to that as a lot of people have. I try sometimes, like I get sucked into it by Ninja True Crime because I love her stuff. I watch some of the drops that Plunder does on this Maddie Soto case, but for the most part, I stay away from the Maddie Soto case. I've done a little bit with What's the Obsession, talking about it. It's so horrifying because it's not just Maddie Soto, it's not just Kylie Rodney, it's not just Martha Moxley and this 13-year-old Jane Doe. I mean, think of all of the people who are victimized year after year, day after day. They don't want to come forward because of it's not safe. I mean, they don't want to get rubbed out. They don't want to get drugged through the mud. It's just tragic. Ninja, hey, I just conjured you up, didn't I? Yes, I was getting off topic, Sub Rosa says. Good morning. Natalie Wood is another rich person, got away with it story. Right. I was talking about Natalie Wood the other day. I don't know if you were here, Sub Rosa. I think you were, right? For sure, Rosa, Robert Wagner red-rummed her. Right. And he was like doing that television show at the time, wasn't he? Wasn't that during the Cagney and Lacey? And that was like a very, very popular nighttime police soap opera type of thing, kind of like Charlie's Angels with the husband and wife. Both SS people with same quote, Anna. Oh, really, Fred Field? You got to be kidding me. Like, that's not a conspiracy right there, huh? Wow. Christopher Watkin did what, I wonder? Well, him and Natalie and Robert Wagner were maybe having a threesome, or, Christopher and Natalie were having a thing. It was that type of thing going on. And it's always like sex, money, retribution. That's what is behind every red rum. Sex, money, retribution. Think about Kylie Rodney. Think about Martha Moxley. Think about Madeline Soto. He was asleep, Rosa, probably passed out. Oh, Christopher Walken? Well, that's always their excuse. They always say they were asleep. Everybody was asleep. I mean, Jen Soto was asleep. I mean, Lindsay was asleep, right? I don't think Christopher had anything to do with it. I think he had something to do with it. He was there. He was on the boat, and he kept his mouth shut. I mean, I like Christopher Watkin a lot. I'm a big fan. Love What's the Obsession. Kelly is great. Thank you, C3PO. They're reliving the trauma. Yeah. Or Rug to Death. Heart to Heart. Oh, okay. What was Cagney and Lacey? Thanks. The Prosecutors podcast discovered Natalie Wood recently. I learned a lot from their coverage. Yeah. Pat Brown. Pat Brown is somebody that I have always wanted to respect, but I can't. And I heard her talking about the Martha Moxley case, and I thought maybe finally she'll say something that I can respect, and she did just the opposite. Is she a profiler, Pat Brown? She has her own podcast, but she also has a lot of clout, like with, I think, the FBI or something like that. I don't know. I mean, it just makes you lose faith in the FBI, right? I mean, people like that, or Coffin Dagger, or that other little blonde that's on News Nation. Yeah. I've been chatting with Scammy on Insta once in a while, and she still claims she's grieving Kylie. Oh, Fred, that is very brazen and brave of you. And yeah, I'm sure she wishes she could undo it in some sense, because she knows it's never going to go away and that it's always going to haunt her. But in other ways, she probably is just very gleeful and gloating, right? I don't know, Pat Brown. Yeah, she's got her own podcast, and I try to like Pat. It's an acquired taste. That's funny. I mean, she's got the clout, but I think that she's just too mainstream, and she's always going to try to protect the party line. She's always going to defend people like the Kennedys, in my opinion. She's not going for truth. She's going for the status quo. And I hate that crap. So let's see. Down the Rabbit Hole and BJ Investigates. BJ Investigates is the same channel as That Surprise Witness, same content creator. So BJ Investigates, That Surprise Witness, she has a law degree. She's really good. And then Down the Rabbit Hole is also really good. And I think the two of them are friends. And I've watched them over the years, but I've been watching them a lot lately because of all the rigmarole with the Diddy, let's say Jizzy, right? The Diddy Jizzy crap. Uh, but I think it was Down the Rabbit Hole that was talking about the lawyers with like Mayor Adams, Eric Adams, and Luigi, the suspect in the shooting of the United Behavioral Health CEO. And she went down this whole list of who the lawyers are, like Busby and the different people that they've been representing. Who's Diddy's lawyer? My brain is dying. Diddy's lawyer, you know. Not Busby, the other one. It's just not coming. Wait a second. It's funny. It said Busby is Diddy's lawyer. That's not true. So here we go. According to the latest reports, Mark Ingafilio will be representing Mangione as part of his legal team. For those who might not know the attorney, he's the same lawyer who has been representing Sean Combs in his SEX trafficking case. That's from 4 days ago. That's weird. And yeah, so there's a lot of articles about this. Who's the other attorney that I can't think of, you guys? I want to say Scalito, but that's not it. Shapiro, right? No, not Shapiro. My brain is completely dead. I guess I better go off air now. Busby and who? Busby and the guy who's been getting sanctioned and reprimanded, you know, just in the last couple of days. Not Busby. He's been prevailing, basically. It's the other guy who's been getting in trouble. And it's not telling me. Not Jose. That's Jose is from Casey Anthony. Jay-Z's attorney. What in the world? Spiro, that's who I'm trying to think of. Like I said, it's definitely time to log off. The brain is shot. I was just thinking of corrupt attorneys. You know, unfortunately, Anna B's, in my experience, they're kind of all corrupt. I mean, it's their job to defend their client. And, you know, they're not supposed to be willing and knowledgeable about crimes and then protecting criminals. But how many of them don't know that their clients are criminals and they're protecting them? I think that is also the same lawyer for Bankman fried Jizzy, and now the innocent until proven guilty guy who shot the millionaire in the street. You mean the guy with the huge fan club, Luigi Mangione? Last week wished her and family a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year plus justice for her friend Kylie soon. Yes, I'm an ass. That's funny. Yeah, I'm sure it makes her really nervous when you say justice for Kylie. But does she want justice for Kylie? Or she's probably trying to pretend that Kylie drowned, without any water in her lungs, right? Yeah, bushy eyebrows. Yeah, it's a good thing people are getting their eyebrows waxed these days, huh? Or everybody would be guilty. The comments about the CEO are totally savage. I don't know what to think. Yeah, the like mainstream people just saying that, that they're big fans of Luigi Mangione. I mean, the CEO is pretty savage, but that's not how you resolve a situation like that. So it is pretty wild. Way bushier than the Idaho 4 defendant. Well, he probably did the Idaho thing then, right? Like, couldn't Dylan finger him out of a lineup? Bushy eyebrows. Like, nobody else in Idaho or Pullman, Washington has bushy eyebrows, right? I think they all got them waxed after that. So let's see. It makes it really easy to hide the secrets of a small town like, let's go back to Truckee with Kylie Rodney, when people can hide behind, like, oh, don't talk about it. It's too hurtful. Don't talk about my daughter. It hurts too much. There's honor in silence. So when people don't want anyone to discuss things, it's often because they themselves are trying to hide some things, in my opinion. So I just think it makes for a really good cover to say it's just too taboo to discuss. Like with Kylie Rodney, it's too taboo to discuss um, the sex abuse kind of thing, right? It's too gross. It's too taboo. Nobody wants to hear about it. Nobody wants to think about it. And that's a good cover. Like, don't open that Pandora's box. So I guess I should wrap up, you guys. It's about 90 minutes in. And if there's anything else you want to say before I close, and today is Saturday, the 28th of December. It's about 3:15 Ohio time. I'm so happy that you guys could be here with me. I really appreciate you. And we got 8 likes and 8 people in the house. That's amazing. Fred Field says, every couple of months, I message her to let her know I have not forgotten Kylie, as have many others. Yeah, we'll never forget Kylie. Some of us will never, ever, ever forget Kylie. Just like Martha Moxley. I mean, these young women are like the girls next door. And, they don't have the connections, like the social clout. They've got, the Moxley family had a lot of cash to pay attorneys and to continue their fight for justice, but they don't have the type of connections that Kennedys have, and the Kennedys don't even have the types of connections that Skakels have. So it's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. I mean, the things that family, the Kennedy family, has done. And I think that the Hamburglar family is kind of like the Kennedy family of the Truckee area. But that was before I knew about the $34 billion of government contracts that Scammy's parents were in charge of for the 2020 decade. So that makes Scammy a Kennedy type as well. And yeah, they get away with horrible, horrible things. And it is so much like the mob, like the Truckee Mafia, to quote Jägermeister. Am I now part of the Truckee Mafia? Ugh. Nice to hear your points of view outside of the comments section. You mean outside of when I'm in the chat, or when I respond to people's comments? I really appreciate your comments, both in the chat and for the replay crew. The comments after the live is over, and I try to respond. I wish I could respond. I mean, I can respond verbally to these, but I wish that I could sometimes, like a comment in the chat. Like, it's weird that you can't. Just love, peace, tranquility, and justice to all. Happy holidays. Thanks for that, Fred. Yeah, we all thank you for that, Fred, for staying in touch with our good friend Scammy. So yeah, I was saying how the Hamburglers, the Jägermeister family, they are also kind of like a miniaturized version of a Kennedy kind of thing. The Westphal family goes back as far with the Hamburglers as, I think, grandparents, maybe great grandparents, and they both are like vineyard owners. And for those that don't know, probably most do, with Napa Valley being not too far away, the vineyard owners are kind of like the hog farmers in Wind Gap, the town in the story Sharp Objects. So the town of Wind Gap in that miniseries Sharp Objects is a town of 2,000 with the only real industry being hog farming. And the family that owns the hog farms pretty much owns the entire town, including law enforcement. And they get away with red rum. Nobody's going to question them, because if they do, they could be next, or they could be economically destroyed. They can lose their job. They can lose everything. They can lose their lives. So that's what keeps people quiet with the movie star industry, with Truckee. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Alec Murdaugh says eats a house. I don't know what that means, Sub Rosa. I love when Alec Murdaugh says eats a house. I message Jaeger periodically. Paradoxically. There's the Freudian slip. I message Jagger periodically too, not as often, however. Such a great miniseries. Oh, you're talking about the Sharp Objects? So yeah, I intentionally call these people by different names just to protect myself legally, and that's why I say Jägermeister instead of Mr. Jagger, and that's why I say Hamburglar instead of Hambrick. But the Hamburglar, the miniature one, he not only do his family members own the wineries, nowadays you've also got all of the cannabis farming going on. So there was a lot of cannabis farming with Hamburglar's mother. I don't know if the parents were divorced, but I know that she had the cannabis farm going. I know Tony Neiman had cannabis farm going. I know that the Nevada County Sheriff had cannabis farm going. Placer County Sheriff probably too. Because remember, you got all that water. I mean, that's what it all comes down to in Kylie's case, is the water rights and the cannabis, because you can't grow the cannabis without the water. It really all comes back to the water. To simplify it all, right? The 911 call, Alec Murdaugh is asked if the residence is a mobile home. He gets super offended and says it's a house, but it sounds like eats a house because of his accent. That's awesome, Sub Rosa. Thank you for sharing that. That's funny. And it's important to keep it light when we're dealing with such heavy stuff. I mean, Alec Murdaugh pew-pewed his own son. What was that, like days before a deposition involving the Mallory Beach incident? And when Mallory Beach was unalived in that boating accident. Alec and his son, is his son's name Paul? They both tried to pin it on her boyfriend and some other people at the hospital. And then, the guy takes his own kid out because he's got zero decency. I mean, you have to have zero decency to take anybody out, in my opinion, but your own child, even most thugs would not be able to do that. But then, see that show, the Sharp Objects, and it ties into my story too. Like, I never thought of my father as that framework of like Munchausen's Van Proxy, but he fits into that too. And I won't say anything else because I don't want to be a spoiler alert. Yeah, the business is what all this corruption comes from. I don't directly accuse them, but remind them we know that being so close to the case, I feel they may know truths to end the case. Right. The last people to text her, talk to her, see her, those are all your main suspects and the family, the people that she lives with. I love Sarah Boone Chronicles. I don't know what the Sarah Boone Chronicles are. Do I need to look into that? Because I see that name on the internet a lot, and it's one I know nothing about. Rest in peace, Jorge. It's horrible, but I laugh every time at how cray-cray she is. We can come together to laugh at Sarah Boone. Yeah, I know zero about that one. I see a lot of channels covering that, and I just have not ever even scratched the surface. So I know it's a really, really crazy one, which is one of the reasons why I don't scratch the surface, because I don't need another giant rabbit hole to fall into. I've already fallen into so many and I can't get up. So I guess I'll just live here, right? Peace out, you guys. Love and light. Have a lovely rest of your day. I hope that you can get some fresh air and sunshine. I'm going to go get some exercise right now. Make sure you stay well hydrated and well nourished. I do have a sip of coffee left. Thanks a million for supporting my channel. And yeah, we're just a couple of days from the end of the year. I'm sure something big is going to happen between now and then, right? Because today's Saturday, so we've got Monday. Although I guess court filings can happen on weekend days too now. I appreciate hearing your thoughts on the Kylie Rodney case. I will get the spelling right someday. Yeah, Kylie's name is tough. And her case is tough. It's just heartbreaking. And should I end with that crazy thought that for all we know, she could be one of the people trapped in P. Diddy's basement dungeon? Could be. Anything's possible. I sure hope not, but I also do hope that she's still alive, but I doubt she is. I think that's a fantasy completely, thinking that she might still be living. Wouldn't that be cool though? Oh, I know. She's just like in the witness protection program, right? Because Scammy's so dangerous. And that's the thing. When you go into a witness protection program, you can be taken out. Nobody would know the difference. So there's no protection. When you're dealing with this kind of stuff, there's no protection. So on that, love and light. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks again. Have a great day.